So please come back so we can finish. I know it's been a long day, but just a few minutes to go. We have a surprise at the very end as well, so look forward to that. It's always difficult to end up in this position, to be able to summarize or say something about everything that happened. In any case, I'm very excited. I think there's been a great event, and I would like to thank everyone involved, the speakers, not to say the least. Very interesting. I won't be making the summary or conclusions. I think you take with you what you want. There were loads of things to take and reflect upon. We heard a lot about the planning of terminology work, the work of commissions. Some successful commissions, I know. There are commissions in other countries not so successful. So this is something that's always a thing to discuss. Also the importance of the state and the state funding, and also work being done within the EU. The methodology part was divided in two. We heard about networks and also the power of crowdsourcing. Again, the double nature of the linguistic and the ontological approach, somehow, translation and, for example, enterprise architecture. There are new actors doing terminology work, which means there are new possibilities of cooperation. Dissemination, social media still, new ways, APIs, linked open data, portals, user adaptation, and many more issues. And for implementation studies, I just put more to be done. I think this is an issue that still there are not very many studies, but it's very important and to me very interesting and very fascinating. And then we had the poster sessions. I think you all agree that it was, this is just some snapshots of you and what you were doing. Those were also, I think that was also a success. I hope you agree. For those 18 of you who had posters that you feel you got the chance to talk to people and could present your work there. I think it was also a good idea and lots of interesting things happening there. So for the official part, if you want to change your presentation, you should send it again. If not, the one on this computer will be put online on the conference website. If there's something you would like to change, then please send a new version so we can put it out. I think everyone will be very interested in reading. There will be instructions about proceedings. Quicker this time, we hope, anyways. Perhaps it could be published within the continuation of the EAFT journal. That's one possibility. If this is we will see, but somehow there will be proceedings. Now I would like to stress a few things about one of the sessions, namely number 3, the role of the terminologist and the link to also training, which was not the main focus here, but still is a consequence of much of what was said. This was a list done by Barbara Karsch, at least the first part. Who is doing terminology work? Well, of course, us here and the experts. We've talked a lot about experts. We are also terminologist generalists, and we have the expert terminologist, perhaps not so common, but there are also such terminologists. But then we saw there are many other professions doing terminology work, being trained in terminology. For example, translators, interpreters, concept modelers, knowledge modelers, UX specialists, requirement analysts, enterprise architects, and many more. They are doing terminology to some extent, but there is also another take on it, fresh view, if you like, and this is something you would have to consider also for training terminologists. We have the social aspect and the crowdsourcing aspect. Is everyone the expert now? Do we ask everyone? This is a definition of expert from an ISO standard. Do you need knowledge or experience to give an opinion, or is it still valid to vote for a term, like we saw in the example from Latvia? Will this undermine the professionalization of language professions? Yeah, this could be discuss, do you need to train users, and how much should you adapt to users? I found a quote also by Teresa Cabré, and she goes back to Helmut Felber. What was a terminologist? Well, a specialist in a particular field who looks for terms in order to express ideas for specific units of knowledge in that field. Someone who drives representation. Again, I'll come back to what Etienne said yesterday about French work, that experts do terminology work, and perhaps the terminologist has a humble position. That's one way of doing it. In a new version of the terminology, translation-oriented terminology standard, they introduce terminology worker, another language professional doing terminology work or expert, as opposed to the terminologist. So we have a new title now, the terminology worker and the terminologist. They both, it's not the main function, but it's an ancillary function of other professional activities. This is one way of introducing two groups of people that work normally together, where the expert could be the terminology worker. At the onset or the planning of the summit, I wanted to invite someone from TC 251. I think I made a mistake. It's 251, yes, on health informatics. In the end, she couldn't come, but they're working on a new standard about workforce roles and capabilities for terminology and terminology services. And they talk about terminology specialists. They talk about their job, their skills, the requirements, and the qualifications. And then we have a new list again with terminology authors, mapping specialist, coding specialist, data modeler, content manager. Is this really specific to the health sector? It is, but I think most of this would be also used in many other domains of society. So I think this is interesting, and they divide this, they classify this in 3 levels: the terminology technical specialist, the terminology specialist, and the terminology advanced specialist. 3 levels of speciality, people doing terminology services. I think this is interesting and should be followed also outside of the healthcare sector. This is another take from this standard. It's just on an early level, but you see data architect, data mapper, terminology asset manager, EHR content manager, many other new titles that we are not used to seeing perhaps in this context. I think we will need to get used to them because terminologist as a profession is widening and expanding, and we see more people doing terminology or similar work. This is an old ad from private sector where actually terminologist was used, terminolog, as I would use in my language, and descriptions of the work and the qualifications. Recently there was another ad for a job, both in the private sector, and they said, the recruiter said, perhaps we shouldn't have used terminologist. We would have had more applications if we had used another title. As I also said, in the Nordic countries, we see a tendency where the general language institution also starts to include terminology work as part of the whole family. Again, this affects the title. So the Swedish title now is not terminologist, but language planner in terminology, which to me it also shows another perhaps direction in the work. I tend to call myself terminologist. I will come back to you with this question in a second. I have 4 questions for you during this closing session. So, just something from real life. I started to think about what is the profession and the professionalization. How do you come from an occupation to a profession? So I found this interesting article on conference interpreters, how they have professionalized their occupation. And they talk about 3 different theories. The trait theory, the first one, where an occupation becomes a profession by certain characteristics, by a code of ethics, and a certain body of knowledge, a licensure, registration, and some loyalty to colleagues. this could be checked with a list of attributes. Then there's another theory, the theory of control, discussing professionalization. How does a certain occupation relate to the labor market? How can they exert power and substance over their work? And it's a collective effort rather than an individual one. Powerful professions are characterized by powerful associations. This is something to remind ourselves of with the European Association for Terminology. The power of the association could be also the power of the profession. Then there's a certain, they discuss the mystification, and the use of a certain jargon helps professionalization and to mystify what you actually do. Try to define the needs of clients. But what is our body of knowledge? Do we have one? There is actually this definition of generally accepted terminology practices, GATP. I don't know if it's something you would be using, but it could be, this could be the body of knowledge that sort of we were supposed to know as terminologists. Or we have a list, a very long list of handbooks, standards, formats, and they're not only from ISO TC 37, but also other committees. Perhaps this is a basis for a professionalization. Is this what you're supposed to know? Are there other things that would be important? Well, in that article, they have the third model where they present the Teng model with different phases. So first you have the competition phase, lots of people doing the same, and then you start to consolidate the profession. There's a consensus about what you're supposed to be doing, and then you have the professional association emerging, okay? And then you start to formulate ethical standards, you gain public trust, and you can control who becomes part of this profession, and then you have sort of protected your own profession. But what are our competing professions? Is this the right view to have? Should we be looking at ourselves as competitors, but rather colleagues or collaborators? We should be rather working together, not against each other. But I think there might be something in this idea, looking at the ideas of theories of professionalization. I did not go in depth. I just wanted to introduce, to throw this out. What is the public perception of the terminologist? Is it considered as an important occupation or not? More and more, I would hope and I would think, and this is why it's surprising that the actual title of terminologist is not in some context used, but something else instead. What are the obstacles possibly to professionalization? Well, you might be confused. This is sometimes the case with translator and interpreter. People tend to mix up who does what. There might not be a systematic body of knowledge that would be exclusive for terminologists, or there are lots of public misconceptions about what do we actually do. Clients are not aware, they don't know what they're ordering. You have to tell them, no, but I am a terminologist, I can't do the work of the enterprise architect. But together we could help you with solving the full problem. So you could find some guidelines also in this article. As I said, it was done for community interpreters. That's why I put those in brackets. But could we use this list, these guidelines also for terminology, to make a clear definition and a universally recognized name for the occupation? Perhaps we have this already. Terminologist is a suggestion. Could we clarify the role of the terminologist in various projects? Training and the training of trainers, and also perhaps client education. We need to train those ordering terminology services. And then the idea of accreditation. We have already, thanks to Termnet, the ECQA, Terminology Manager Certification Program, on 2 levels, also for the automotive sector. This is something we could continue discussing. Also, I found from the engineering side what they consider to be a recognized profession for engineers. Well, you should have a professional education, and you should have a registration of fitness to practice via voluntary certification or mandatory licensing. Specialized skill development and continuing professional education, communal support via professional society, and a code of ethics. That's what sort of engineering at least some 20 years ago, thought this is what you need to have a profession to be recognized. I'm not saying this is true or even valid. I think the ideas were interesting to think about for our own profession and the way it's developing and expanding. I used, sorry for the name, Donatella, I misspelled it again, Politano. This was from the last summit. So what is the status, le statut du terminologue? Is this still valid? You said then, être terminologue est aujourd'hui une fonction reconnue. So, is it a recognized profession today? I would say in many places it is, not everywhere, and not the title is not that recognized either yet everywhere. I asked the question in the LinkedIn group, Terminology. Only my Norwegian and Danish colleague answered so far. It's not a recognized profession in Denmark, not in Norway, and not in Sweden. However, it is recognized, for example, in Canada. We have the terminologue agréé. It's also, as far as I understand, in Switzerland. It's terminologe, terminologin, just to come back to the feminization of professions. And I also discovered, which was good news, I would think, from Romania, where the new profession quite recently was recognized in the group of linguists, translators, and interpreters. So the occupation has been introduced, and it's now also recognized, terminologue. So there are places. So the poll would then be, if you're not coming from any of these countries, please raise your hand if the terminologist profession is recognized in your country. Ireland says yes. Netherlands says yes. France says yes. Switzerland we knew. Georgia, yes. So, a bit better than I thought. Nordic countries, no. Not at least for Finland, perhaps. Semi-recognized, or we'll say recognized. So it still has a way to go. And the second question, do you use this title about yourself? Self-reflection time. You would call yourself terminologist. Well, this is at least a majority. So I feel good. I'm in a room of terminologists. Of course, I just showed there are terminology workers. There are other people doing terminology work. I think we should try to work together, but also expand our own profile. One idea of professionalization was the discussion of the roles and the functions. And within a Finnish-Swedish quite recent network, which was presented in the poster session, I presented a paper on some other functions of terminologists, that of facilitator, catalyst, and perhaps the dictator one, which comes back to, again, to the French example, where many cases the terminologist decided on the definition and the experts went along. I have this experience myself. Or someone was appointed, you do the definitions and you follow, which is a strange way of working, but it came from above, so it was just a matter of following. But I think it was also mentioned by Dora Tamas, the facilitator model. That's what you really do. The function is to facilitate or be a catalyst to set it off without being consumed yourself. This is the role of the catalyst in chemistry. And then in this context, I think you could also, I'll throw this at you again, just to start some reflection, perhaps for the next summit. I started looking at consensus theories and decision-making theories, what happens in groups, who makes decisions and how. So, in an old article, I found these two traditions of consensus, one in a group, agreement in a group, and the other one, rather there's a co-orientation toward a certain statement and not the individual one. You see it rather as a collective process. or you see it as an aggregate of individual processes. This is something, what's happening in the terminology project. Could we see both or one or the other? Are we talking about complete consensus or partial consensus? Are there several levels of partial consensus? We have agreement but not consensus. We have a first or a second degree of consensus. We realized that we actually did agree, or we realized that we did not agree. And this is interesting. You can also look at biology, how animals make decisions in a group, what happens. I'm not saying it's transferable, it's just an interesting thing to do, mind exercise. But for decision making, you also have the consensus, the shared consensus, and the unshared consensus decision, where one would be democratic and the other more despotic. And we're back again to the role of the terminologist. Am I supposed to be the catalyst, just observe, set it off, ask questions, or do I meddle into this and become almost also an expert? So I found an interesting, this is the most interesting model I found among all these decision-making theories, where they have a three-phase model to arrive at the consensus in a group. You need to compare the conceptual structures of the people making up the group. And it's done in a different way than we're used to, but I would say it's still very close to terminology, where you have the terminology of a domain and you have distinctions in domain. This would be rather definitions. And you have two experts or two clients with a conceptual system each. And when they share the terminology and the definitions, we have consensus. But then you would have a matrix where you have conflict. You have the same terminology but various definitions. Or you have various terms but the same definitions. You would have correspondence. And then in the end you would have contrast. Neither terms nor definitions would be the same. So you can put this in a matrix, and the attributes, you can use perhaps characteristics or definitions would be possible here to see the different situations where you could end up with an expert group and how you would solve this as a terminologist. Again, I never knew this before, and it's not a new article. Perhaps it's old stuff for you. For me, it was interesting, and I will continue to reflect upon this, the role of the terminologist and how this affects also training of terminologists. So the functions, again, it was also a function of scapegoat. You should remember this. This can also end up, you said and you told us to do this definition. You said it was okay. Yeah, but I would say the facilitator is the one that I recognize the most now, I would say. The one who can, on two levels, think of two levels, be one of the gang and be an outsider at the same time, balance this role of being a consultant and managing the process, stimulate discussion, provoke when you need, and then summarize results. This is quite a complicated task, I would say, but you do lots of things, and this perhaps is something we could find in this to move on. We have profiles, several. The latest one was from Term Cord in 2017. We have the Berufsprofil, which is now being revised from DTT, and some other ones. We've heard about them. We also have, as I said, the certification that was introduced, the ECQA on 2 levels. Again, is this positive or not positive? Well, you could go both ways with this, I suppose. This is just some of the modules contained in the ECQA. I've done it myself on advanced level, perhaps several of you as well, to see, and I learned a lot, I must say. It was very good. But this idea of certification, is it a good thing for the profession, or is it not? Do you need this test? Should the cost be reasonable? This is general ideas about certification. You need an administration, you need a credible agency to have a certification. Otherwise, it will have no use. It could have lots of advantages to give status, legitimacy. You have your professional skills documented. But again, if there aren't enough professional terminologists, will it be of any use? How can you set the criteria? It's hard to be objective. Is it only a PR trick? I'm sorry for the typos. So you have to sort of discuss this. Is certification a good thing or a bad thing? I think it has many advantages. I really do. So the third question for you then would be, how could we make this profession even more known? And do we need a code of ethics? Is this something that the association should be working on? Is it possible to have a code of ethics? I won't ask, if someone wants to answer it now, please. If you don't, it's the end of the conference. I give it to you for food for thought, I think. How many of you, just for the final poll, would think it's a good idea to develop a code of ethics for the terminologist profession? Raise your hand if you think it's a good idea. You need more, I suppose, to understand what it means, but there were a few yeses. Someone strongly against. It's not a decision time, it's just interesting to know. So this is the wrong way to be going down. Since it was mentioned in professionalization theories, I think it's interesting. Just to finish off with, I use a quote again from our Georgian colleagues. Technically developed small countries have the relevant experience, and it is necessary to study and share it. And I think this was what was done here, although, of course, not all of us represent smaller languages. To some extent, we do. I think it was very interesting to see the uzei experience with implantation. I think you're far ahead of at least many of us. So I would like to now, again, officially thank all the parties involved, especially uzei, Skerikasko, to Imanol and to Begonia, to John. I think it's been a true joy to be here in San Sebastian. All the activities, very professional, I hope you agree. Also, the venue, and to you, interpreters. I would like to also direct a special thank you to Anka Viliku, who actually spent a lot of time preparing the final presentation so we could hear it. It was no easy work, and I hope we can get the article from Gabrielle in its entirety. We also have since yesterday, a new board of the EAFT. And I would like also now to officially thank the 3 members of the board leaving. We have 3 new ones, but three leaving. So I would like to ask Anna Ostroski, Anic, Tegay Andrews, and Esther Papp to come up and just so you can thank them, because they were a major part of organizing this event. And they've done lots of other things as well. So please come here. And for the record, I think we should perhaps also ask the new board members to, at least if you are here, Moitza, Zager, Karer, and Nina Nissile. And the third one, she left, she had to leave, Una Brechnach from Ireland. So we have a new member. So what are we going to do next? What are the ways forward? Well, I talked about the interest groups. We discussed an idea about turning the EAFT into a federation, the code of ethics, continue with the IITF activities, continue the European Translation Term Bank project, perhaps as a network for Europe. This is things that sort of could be done. We'll see what we'll do in the new board. Should we continue the seminar on national term banks, Term Intra, which was already introduced? And we know one thing, and that's we don't know exactly the way forward. We know the next summit will be staged in Ireland in 2020, hosted by our Irish colleagues. We don't have the theme ready. I just put down two things. Oh, you can't see that anymore. So, new ways of distribution, APIs, open data, a technical thing would be a possible. Yeah, there they are. Roles and functions and actors of terminology work is kind of sociology of terminology, or something else. So we count on you as members. You also have a say in what we do in these summits. I think it's important that you participate. You can also participate. There will be in the newsletter in the next issue. There's you can participate in this ASIS de l'Organisation Européenne de Plurilinguisme. There's a new call for papers for the 15th of December. So this is coming out in the next newsletter. But now I think I said everything, and I would like again to thank you for your participation. And now for the final surprise, we would like to introduce more of the Euskaraldia, which starts today. And then before you leave, we will have a joint photo taken outside of here. So please don't disappear. But now I invite the representatives of Euskaraldia. Eskerrik asko.
Zuren galdetik, Euskaraldia. 11 egun euskaraz, ekimenean parte hartutera gonbidatu nahi zenjuegu.
No soy capaz de hablar en euskera, pero lo entiendo. Me gustaría que me hablarais en euskera, aunque yo conteste en castellano.
Guztiako hiztunak piztu nahi ditugu. Martxan jarri nahi ditugu. Beren ohiko harremanetan eta ulertzen duten pertsona guztiekin euskaraz hitz egin dezaten.
Mikel Irazusta, Jokin Aperribai, Barbara Goenaga, Garazi Urrusolo, Xila Pilstrom, Joseba Abezia, Kontxu Uzkudun, Josean Fernandez, Miren Arrieta, Iñaki Salvador, Mariano Ferrer.
Azkenik bukatuen lana arraindegin. Eta udare juntzaigu, baino, bakizete zuten, poste naiz hemen genditzea zudan. Lan pila inde euskaranen aldeli. Lan pila, belarri prestekin, hau bizi pilatzen, zenbat informazio zabaldu deun. Nik uste herria prest da hola Euskaraldiako.
Hauntxekutan bai! Berrio, herri
Asmatuko zenuke burlatar hauetatik zeinek edakien euskaraz aurpegira begiratuta?
Ba, 10 burlatar horiek denek ulertzen dute euskara.
Gora Euskaraldia, gora arte nagusia eta gora Marijaia.
Kaixo! Kaixo! ¿Qué hartuko duzu? ¿Me pones una cerveza?
Maite kartera daukazu, saia da.
Ah, bai, egia da. Ba, un garagardoa, por favor. Bueno, mesedez. Eskerrik asko. Agur! Agur!
Inertziak hausten astea. Segia da, gauza asko egin dela, baina inertziak ere sortu dira. Inertziak, organizatibua, personalana, eta Euskaraldiaren bidez, aurrena maila individualean eta gero maila kolektibo, enpresa, elkarte, instituzioetan, planteatzen dena da, batez ere da, guazen, aktibatzea eta inertzia dutzea.
Eta ekimen honetan, Agoizko herritarrok ere parte hartuko dugu.
Euskaraldian parte hartzeko, bi baldintza bete behar dira. Batetik 16 urtetik gora izatea eta bestetik euskara ulertzea.
Puztu Globoak Euskaraldiak proposatzen duena gustatu bazaizue.
Puztu Globoak Euskararen alde egotea nahikoa ez dela uste baduzue. Puztu Globoak Euskaraz egin nahi baduzue.
¡Aupa! ¿Egingo aldugu euskaraz?
¿Yo? ¿Contigo? Pero si no sé, que me bloqueo, nik ezakit.
Nola ez dakizula, baina ulertzen duzu, ez?
Bai.
Orduan, nik euskaraz, eta zu, nahi duzun bezala. Belarri prest?
Aho bizi?
Bai! Hori da!
Lotxarik gabe!
Euskaraldia badator, eguesi barren daukagu, zoro bizi, hau bizi, haupa Euskaraldia!
Hamaika egun euskaraz eta ohitura berri ugari. Gure aukera badator lagun, heldu Euskaraldiari.
Armairutik kanpora, hau bizi, euskarako munduan, nahi du bizi. Belarri prest onduan, adiaki, oraina bihurtzeko, Euskaraldi.
Kale bazterretan parkeetan.
Bueno, arratsaldeon guztioi. Euskara utxian egitea tokatzen zait, 11 egunetan, beraz, euskaraz egingo dena. Gio sartuko naiz Euskaraldian edukian, baina, bueno, 6 minututan ikusi dezue ze montatu deun urte honetan, ez? Hau ikusi dezutena da herriz herri sortu den dinamika, gaur egunera arte. Beraz, ez dakigu ze gertatuko den 11 egun hauetan, baina sortu dan dinamikak, gutzako, guk irabazi dugu horrekin ja. Lehenengo eta behin, eta terminologia gailurra izteko momentura iritsi garelako, tokatzen zaiz zorionak ematea, EAFT eta uzei egindako lan bikainarengatik. Bi egun trinko eta interesgarri izan dira, benetan, eta eskerrak eman behar dizkiegu dena oso ondantolatu dutelako bi egun hauetarako. Europako leku askotako eta baita Europar Batasuneko erakunde batuetako hizlariak izan ditugu gure artean, bakoitzak bere hizkuntzan eta bere testuinguruan egiten duen lanaren berri emanez. Entzun eta ikusi dugun guztia zeharo interesgarria izan da guztiontzat, besten lanak eta esperientziak ezagutzea, labur-labur bada ere, inspirazio izan daitekelako besteontzat. Atzo esaten genuen bezala euskara hizkuntza txikia da, inguruko hizkuntzekin konparatzen badugu behin-behin. Baina azken 30 urteotan izan duen garapen maila, benetan handia izan da maila guztietan. Esate baterako ingurune digitalaren arloan estatu hizkuntza askok baina presentzia handiagoa du. Eta hori guztia lankidetzan lortu da, hau da, botere publikoen ekimena eta ekimen pribatua uztartuz. Terminologia alorrean ere bai. Gure lanaren ardatza, kontsensua eta adostasuna bilatzea izan da beti. Gure testu inguruan erronka da terminologia batzordeak onartutako eta gomendutako terminoak estrategikoak erabiltzea eta horretarako jakina oso garrantzitsua da euskararen erabilera eguneroko bizitzan areagotuz joatea. Horregatik utzi duzue zuekin partekatzen gaur abian jarri dugun Euskaraldi ekimena. 11 egun euskaraz, hain zuzen ere, herritarren hizkuntza ohituretan eragiteko. Gaurtik eta abenduaren 13 11 egunez, hizkuntz ohiturak aldatzeko erronka jarri diogu gure buruari. Ia 200.000 herritarrek eman dute izena erronka honetan parte hartzeko. Datozen 11 egunetan, euskaraz egitea nahi dugu ahal den guztietan eta edonon. Ahal den guztietan, euskarari eutsi beharko diogu ahobiziok, euskaldun aktiboa dira hauek. Ni ahobizi txapa jarrit. Belarri prestak berriz, belarria, euskaldun pasiboak, gutxienez euskaraz ulertzen duten kideak izango dira, gainontzekoi euskaraz aritzeko gonbidapena luzatuko diotenak. Bi rol hoietako batekin ikusiko gaituzu identifikatuta 11 egun hauetan. Euskal Herriko herri guztietan, hizkuntza ohiturei astindu bat ematea eta ahalik eta pertsona gehienek euskara gehiago erabiltzeko urratsak ematea helburua izanik, Eusko Jaurlaritzak ariketa sozial erraldoi honen ikerketa lana ere egingo du. Batetik, hizkuntza ohiturak aldatzeko prozesuak aztertuko dira. Eta bestetik, ekimenaren eragina nolakoa eta zenbatekoa izango den ezagutuko dugu. Guretzako oso egun inportantea da gaurkoa, aipatutako ekimena abiarazten dugulako batetik, eta horretarako lankidetza giro bat sortzeko gai izan garelako bestetik. Gaur abiatu den euskaraldiak elkarlana izan du ardatz. Elkarlana erakunde publikoen eta gizarte eragileen artean. Elkarlana gobernu ezberdinen artean, ze ekimen honetan Nafarroa, Ipar Euskal Herria eta Euskal Autonomia Erkidegoa izan gea, eta elkarlana tokian tokiko eragileen artean, tokian tokiko eragileen eta nazio mailako eragileen artean ere. Auzolana izan da eta izaten ari da ardatz guzti honetan. Torren lekuko, herrietan egon diren dinamikak erakusten dituen bideoa ikusi ahal izan duzue, bertan. Playri eman diot, nahi gabe? Bale. Hartaz, gailur honi amaiera emateko, gonbidatu nahi zaituztet, elkarrekin argazki bat ateratzera, euskaraldian ikur bihurtu diren, belarri prest eta ahobizi irudiekin. Eskerrik asko.